Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. When people read about Maitreya or hear Benjamin Creme's talks or videos about Maitreya, sooner or later you're going to hear about his priorities because that's the most important aspect to this story. His main two priorities right now are the need for true and lasting peace and the need to save our environment. Okay, as the masters put it, SOP, save our planet. Okay, now the question about peace. Okay, now would people really, when they read about Maitreya or hear Benjamin Creme talk about Maitreya, and then on the heels of that, hear about his call for peace to humanity, there are some, I'm sure, that's a welcomed idea, right? And wow, that's really kind of cool. And then others, and I kind of find myself in that category. Now, others might like the idea, but don't think it's even close to even being possible based on, of course, the state of affairs today, and of course, the long history of violence and over the years and millennia and so forth, right? Really, since known history, we're a very violent species. And of course, it's bringing us to the destruction of the race if we're not careful because of the technology that we have. If we were just fighting each other with bows and arrows, it's bad, but it wouldn't be really, really bad, right? Now we have the technology to wipe everybody off the planet if you're not careful. And just having that as a possibility, having that technology and that ability, and yet we're a violent, separate species, as sooner or later somebody's going to take advantage of that technology and use it against humanity. That's really what it amounts to. Now, and then there's the other group is because they've heard Benjamin Creme talk about who Maitreya really is, being the one awaited by all the world's religions or just a teacher for the world. They, of course, don't buy into any of that talk about peace. They think that's deception. That's the Satan talking, about peace and call it evil and don't want to hear anything about it. And of course, it'll be an ongoing problem for years, I'm sure, once Maitreya is out known for who he is on TV. Those three groups. Now, according to Benjamin Creme's master, the first group is actually the largest of the three, really, and that more people want peace for the world than don't. Now, I wanted to talk about or read another master's article because Benjamin Creme's master, when he talks about Maitreya's priorities or talks about certain events, even though they're written decades ago, you can really put it into what's going on today if you kind of read into it. And he explains it in a very simple way, but a very educated way, and doesn't leave a lot of room for things to be left out. Now, the article that I'm going to read is called The Need for Action, and it was published in November of 1990, so a good time ago. And he's talking about of course, the tensions that were happening leading up to the first Gulf War. But if you really look at it from what's going on in the Middle East today and has been going on since the early 90s with Iraq and so forth, you can kind of look at it like, wow, we really have not gotten through any of that. It's really like the extenuation of what's been going on for decades, really. And then if you look at it from 9/11's point of view to the instability that's going on with terrorism and so forth, it really does beckon us to do something. And while we're waiting for our governments to take action, which is probably not going to happen until the people of the world decide to take the action, for themselves, right? We're going to be living in the same state of affairs that we're living in today. So if you read this, kind of listen to it from today's perspective versus something that historically happened, 30 years ago, really, or nearly 30 years ago. So just take a listen. It's entitled The Need for Action. Of course, it was published in Share International in November of 1990. I'm reading these master's articles from one of my favorite books, A Master Speaks. And it's just a compilation of the articles that were published in Share International. And it's found on page 181 of A Master Speaks. Many times before have I spoken of the need for action to realize men's plans and dreams for a better life for all. As Maitreya has said, quote, nothing happens by itself. Man must act and implement his will, unquote. With this in mind, let us look to the problems which most demand attention and seek to throw some light on their solution. The major problem awaiting resolution is that of achieving just and lasting peace. Without peace, today there would be no future for the race. The nations, even now, are edging slowly towards this goal, but certain basic requirements must be met before real peace can be assured. Firstly, true peace depends on trust, which arises only when the law of justice is fulfilled. The great and widening gap between the lifestyles of the rich and poor, nationally and between the nations, is today the greatest block to the achievement of peace. Divergent ideologies play their divisive part, but this factor is diminishing in potency. Most important by far is the ingrained complacency and greed of the developed world. Peace results from balance, whose absence guarantees conflict and war. The achievement of balance requires the recognition that all are interdependent, peoples and nations, and that the needs of all can be met by just sharing. Until that realization dawns and is followed by action, we shall know an unstable world. While half the world goes hungry and millions yearly starve, true peace remains a dream. The present crisis in the Middle East has brought home to the industrial giants the folly of selling arms to emerging nations. Iraq is but one of many countries whose ambitions have been fostered by this cynical trade. The factories of the West cannot be allowed to prosper in maintaining the regimes of tyrants and reactionaries around the world. Events in the Persian Gulf have at last focused the need for an integrated solution to the problems of that region. No resolution of the present situation is possible without an Arab-Israeli accord, and an end to the bitter enmity which has festered there since the founding of the State of Israel. The Palestinian people must and will have their homeland. Nothing less will satisfy the legitimate aspirations of that long-suffering group, and nothing less will bring an end to the recurrent crisis which have maintained tension and thus threatened world peace for so long. Events are moving fast. If leaders grasp this present opportunity and with wisdom take the longer view and withhold their military hand, the world could see emerging the end of hostility and war, a just redistribution of resources, and a new and saner relationship between the nations. For this, Maitreya has worked long and hard, counseling the main protagonists in the various crises as they have arisen, seeking to endow them with his insight and breadth of view. Their gradual response to his endeavors allow him the sooner to come openly before the world. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.